right, so this month, as we know, is Black History Month, and I wanted us to talk a little bit about Black history and your experiences with Black History Month within the education system. Do you remember celebrating or discussing Black History Month when you were in school?
I can start. I don't mind starting. I don't remember Black History Month being talked about a lot in school. What I distinctly remember is the announcements of every day, like saying like some like historical influential black person that like that's all I remember really. And that's like more high school. So I'm trying to think back to middle school if anything happened. But like I remember it being like, oh, it's Black History Month. But that's kind of like the end of the conversation in most of my classes. Like I don't really remember like learning anything different. Maybe they set it up so we were learning about the civil rights movement during this time or something, but I don't remember any specific like we're learning this because of Black History Month, or this is something that we're learning that we wouldn't normally learn. Just, basically the basics of what we learn about Black history in school, which is just Martin Luther King. It's kind of all don't really go too much in depth there. So that's my memory, but I want to hear what you guys think because like I don't remember.
I don't remember like specifically Black History Month until like high school, but I do remember like I don't remember learning Black history in school at all until the 5th grade, and I had a teacher who he like had us research like important figures in like minority communities. So like we had like one girl, like her parents were deaf, so she like searched up like deaf advocates, and so mine was like Septima Clark, and that was the first time I ever like found out about someone who wasn't like Martin Luther King or like Rosa Parks, and I was like completely obsessed. And I remember in high school, I specifically remember Mr. Beno. He was my first teacher, or my only teacher, to specifically like do something for Black History Month. And he passed us out like these packets, and it was about like the start of Black Lives Matter, and specifically Black Lives Matter in schools. And I think it was in Seattle schools. And he was telling us, I think it was like 12 principles. And I had never heard about that at all. And so it was really cool. And like we went through the packet, and he like let us each take one home and share it with our families. And I thought that was really interesting. And it wasn't until 12th grade. So it was like the last year of school that I ever found that out.
I feel like throughout my schooling, I was in Renton School District from K to 12th grade. And through Renton School District, it was always an option to celebrate Black History Month. They had events for you to go to that you could possibly learn more, but it wasn't mandatory within the school system. They didn't have any mandatory curriculum that they put into each of your classes. They didn't have you learn about all these historical figures. I don't think I knew about Harriet Tubman until I was in middle school. I didn't know about Rosa Parks until I was in middle school. I didn't explore Black history until I was in college. So I think that for me, it has always been an option to learn more, but it's never been a mandatory thing for us to learn, which is a problem in itself.
I remember 2 distinct times I learned Black history. So in school, back in when I was in Dallas in middle school, I was in like 7th grade in Dallas, and Black History Month around that time, it kind of felt like a free time kind of, and especially when we were younger, they would just show us a lot of movies and like cartoons of like a whole bunch of like the Harriet Tubmans and stuff like that, and just a whole bunch of stuff like a whole bunch of Black leaders. We learned a lot about that through movies, and we didn't necessarily get taught it, but we were kind of informed about them. And I remember in my junior year doing one of the history IAs, is when I first learned about somebody else other than like Martin Luther King myself, and that was Ella Baker. I was researching her and I learned about her, but those were the only really times that I learned. Not really anything that was mandatory, but yeah.
I went to I went to Kent School District until like my 10th grade year. And so like throughout that, I went to an elementary school. I went to a school where it was like a lot of Russian and Ukrainian kids. And then the kids that were of color, they didn't even like other students of color. So it was just kind of like confusing. And so I think a lot of the teachers didn't even really bother to talk about race at all, especially like Black history. And then when I got into middle school, teachers would like acknowledge it, but they wouldn't make a big deal out of it. They would just, especially if you were Black, they would be like, oh, like you should do this or you should look up this, but they didn't teach it to the classes. And then when I got to Renton, I didn't really, the only time I really like remember learning about Black history was like in history class during civil rights movement. And I feel like that was kind of basic because it was just the basics that we learned every year. So I didn't really feel like I was learning anything new. And then I just remember like during Black History Month, the announcements that they did, but I never really got to listen to them because my class was like always loud during the announcements. So.
All right, mine is brief though. Unfortunately, I do not recall very much as well. But to second both Sydney and Kayla, I do remember the announcements. The only reason why they might have been a little more memorable for me is because sometimes I was one of the people volunteering to give announcements. However, yeah, announcements, as any teacher at Renton would know, it's hard for you to get your class to quiet down and actually pay attention. It's getting thrown in with a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's not really, even if it's cool, quick, fun facts, it's not anything that will really stick, unfortunately. And it's kind of just like a quick, easy thing, which I don't think should be stopped at all, but I think at least more focus and more attention, more giving it a better platform to be heard. I know my senior year when when announcements were shifting to become videos to some extent, I think so. I think really cool programming could be developed with that means of sharing announcements, just because it's visual and everyone will be quiet once they're watching something on screen, lights off in the classroom, on something on the projector. So that would be my little tip. But yeah, unfortunately, I do not recall learning much outside of history of the Americas and covering the civil rights unit. Unfortunately, most of it was just done at home or done with my peers, done on my own. So.
I think I feel the same as everybody else. Like, I don't really remember too much of Black history in my education, like upbringing. I also think too, so like when I think about Black History Month, there's one experience that specifically stands out to me. And I don't remember if I was a junior or a senior at the time, but I was in Black Student Union and I was the secretary, right? And I remember a specific assistant principal asking if Black Student Union wanted to like help a little bit with the Martin Luther King Assembly. And we were thinking like, this is our time to shine. Like Black History Month is coming up. Like we have so many ideas that we want to, like present to this whole school. Like this is like, there's so much we could give right now, right? Like, because the only time we ever talk about Black history in school is in Black Student Union, right? And so I remember presenting all of our ideas and we had come up with so many and all of them were shut down, right? Like this specific principal, assistant principal, I should say, did not like any of our ideas, and they weren't the look that he was looking for an MLK assembly. And I just remember feeling like super shut down, because I mean, when I think about like Renton High School specifically, or just schools in general who are diverse and have a diverse amount of students, like they love to claim diversity. Like y'all love to rep diversity, and my school is diverse and we have all these kinds of different learners from these different backgrounds, but you're not willing to diversify your education. So I'm just a little confused. Yeah, but as far as like anything Black history in school, no, I don't. Like y'all are talking about like y'all remember announcements. I don't even remember that. Like I don't know where I got lost in the mix, because I don't remember that at all. But maybe that's just me and I wasn't paying attention.
And that's kind of the point to the point of what you were all sharing too, is like, when are we doing this work? Is it happening during a time where it can be meaningful and heard, or is it happening in the background, right? And like, or is it optional and not everybody has to participate? And then what are the things that are not optional, and who are the people that's targeting, like the things that are not optional? The history that we are taught and we have to be taught isn't written for all of us here. So why is that not optional? And then the history that's also part of American history, right? Black history is part of American history. Why is that not being taught as a regular part of our curriculum?
My senior year, I had a teacher, amazing, still talk to her today, who was very intentional in the way that she taught Black history, right? And wow, I can't believe that I forgot about all of that. And I just think just to have, and she's a white woman, right? And she did amazing. So white women can do it. I also just think, how do you make something like that school-wide, where it's not just specific? You might have a specific teacher who's good at what she does every now and then, right? Because she's one teacher in a sea of a bunch of people who aren't doing the work. So how do you make stuff like that school-wide, I guess, is my thought off of that.
And to add on to what she said, Miss K actually taught me Great Gatsby and Langston Hughes, so that's why. Shout out to Miss K and Miss Fox.
Me too.
Tell me Toni Morrison.
Something you shared, Jaya, that makes me think of a quote is that diversity does not equal to equity. And I think sometimes people think that, oh, it's diverse, so it must be equitable. This school is diverse, so it must be equitable. No, it's just diverse. We have to make equity happen.